welcome to the second episode of this Azure Data Factory Zero to Hero series. And today we'll be looking at the Azure hierarchy, some prerequisites in actually creating an Azure account. So from high level to low level, it's pretty simple. You need to have an Azure account so that we can manage all of our resources in the Azure Portal. We have a tenancy or a directory, which is where we group these resources and users in our organizational settings. And then we have what we call resources or instances of Azure services like Data Factory, Azure SQL databases, file storage, and so on. There are a few prerequisites we need to be mindful of when creating a Data Factory. We need an Azure account, like we said, and I'm going to show you how to do this for free if you don't have one. If your org does have an account, you still need to be careful that you have the relevant administrator permissions to do everything you may require. We need a directory or a tenant, as discussed, and potentially need a resource group. We'll look at this after and creating some relevant resources, because in the next episode we'll look at actually some Azure Data Factory activities and we can look at dependencies then. So you can actually verify whether you have an Azure account, in your organization, just by going to portal.azure.com. You can see here in one of my test directories, I have set up a demo Data Factory, an Azure SQL database. I will go over how to, there's a nice trick to get a free Azure SQL database for 12 months. We'll go over that in subsequent episodes. And some blob storage, some file storage that you may have heard of before as well, because those would be the typical ways to ingest, transform data and load it into a destination database or sink. So to actually go ahead and start setting up an Azure account, if you don't have one, this would be what I may presume. You can just go to azure.microsoft.com, and as you can see here, you get the usual spiel, you get the information on what Azure actually is, but you can just go ahead and click free account, and we'll go from there. As you see, we get a bit more information, but we do have that nice green call to action button to start for free. But as you can see, there are a number of free services. We will look at Azure SQL database, things like file storage, and it just basically demonstrates some key information. Once you use the 30-day free trial, you will still have access to pay as you go. So really, if you're just using this on a personal level, it's going to be very inexpensive, so it doesn't matter. Or you can look to sort of follow these tutorials in your first 30 days if you like. And after 12 months, you still get access to a lot of free services. So we'll just start free for now. So again, I'm really going to start from scratch to show anyone who's not created an Azure account, because it can seem like quite an overwhelming process because there's so many dependencies. So I'm just going to select to create a new one. This will just be a test account for this tutorial. I won't be using it, and most of this will just be mock data. But I did set up an Outlook address before this just for a test. You can do that as well by just going to outlook.com. Very simple to do, free. I'm just going to call this, Azure Data Factory Zero to Hero test, just a dummy Outlook account. And from there, we can specify a password, use your protocol, make this as long as you like with as many special characters, alphanumeric, whatever for that strength. But this, again, is just a dummy account. So once we've done that, we can just hit next and specify a name. Again, I've just given a dummy name and I will give a dummy date of birth. This isn't my date of birth. But yeah, just to show you the steps that we may want to go through here, we need to populate it, obviously, to advance. Now, that will work out anything that needs to be done. It should proceed. I'll get that lovely verification to prove that I'm not a robot, that reCAPTCHA. Fine, we're there. So we've got the basis here of actually setting up our Azure account. And now we just get to the stage where we have to input some more information. As this is a free account, but you may be building a pay-as-you-go scheme, so we will have to provide some card details. Usually what just happens is just an active card check. You're not going to be billed for anything, so I wouldn't worry, and you get that first 30 days free, provided you stay within that $200 credit, which I would assume you would. You need to provide a phone number. Once you do that, you can just be text or called a validation code, or at least that's how it works in the UK. It may work slightly different in different regions. In the address, you should obviously supply your proper address and postcodes. I'm just laying out tests just to show you the sort of basic steps of creating an Azure account. And of course, important to remember why we're doing this, because essentially Data Factory is an instance of an Azure service. So it's all containerized and held within the Azure Portal. This is why we need an Azure account. So that first stage will complete, and then we'll likely go into the next stage where we need to then go ahead and submit card details for any subsequent billing that may take place. I'm not going to show you me inputting my card details, but yeah, that's obviously important. And like I said, usually what will happen, it'll just go through an active card check, just to make sure that your card actually exists. And from there, once you've imported your personal details and your card details, we can just go ahead. And it's a very fast process in terms of actually creating the portal. Quite often in Microsoft services, there's a bit of lag or delay. This seems to be pretty good. You can submit a survey if you like, or a feedback form. I'll just give the emoji there. And it will go ahead and set up your account. As I say, this is sort of a matter of minutes or less. So it's actually very efficient by sort of previous standards. Now, once that's done, you're actually redirected into your Azure portal. So you'll see my directory is just, the default directory is just an instance of our sort of our Outlook account there, and then that will group in our resources, and we can even go ahead and create resource groups. So for example, we could have an analytics resource group if we're doing data warehousing, file storage, ETL, and so on. So this is where we're going to get to today, essentially. But I'm just going to show you. You can then begin to search for resources. For us, Data Factory would be very important. So when you type in there, Data Factory, you'll then get options for data factories. And this is what we're going to look at next. Actually doing some typical Data Factory activities, and we'll learn from there. And then we'll also look at other dependencies. Like I said, blob storage is very popular. Azure SQL databases, and I'll show you some of this free services that's interesting as well. But in the next episodes, we're actually going to get into the sort of the meat of the actual technology, and we'll be looking at some exciting sort of data integration tasks. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you.